Hello, I'm very glad to be here with you again. I'm going on with the effort of speaking English, and I apologize, of course, for all the mistakes I'll probably make during the video, but the only way to learn is to practice. And sometimes you have to dive in the ocean and swim to learn how to swim well. I'd like to talk today about our emotions in the learning field. And I'd like to introduce you to a thinker that is a doctor, a psychiatrist, but also a philosopher who wrote a very interesting book, knowing about your emotions, that I'm trying to learn. So, Knowing Your Emotions from Brian Lynch is published in Interest Book, Chicago, in 2010. And while reading this book, I could finally enter the black box of the classroom and understand what was going on when the students were not interested in the subject of philosophy, or when my colleagues went through deep depression or the famous burnout, and when the chief department avoid the dialogue with the professors. It happens. In fact, I began to deeply understand why people were so unhappy at school or at the university. And we observe a lot during our academic studies, but we don't really listen to our emotions. We are afraid of those emotions, and in fact, maybe because if we listen carefully to what we are feeling in competitive and cold organizations, and well, maybe we quit. Maybe we avoid. Maybe we attack. Maybe we self-attack. Maybe we withdraw. When we face those situations that block our interest in a learning context. That is following Brian Lynch studies. Well, I suggest we take a slow walk, step by step together, to try to listen carefully to our emotions and understand what's going on when we are no longer interested in going back to school as a student, as a teacher, as a professor. Our first step is learning a very new idea. The idea that emotion comes first, and then we think and do, or do and think. Well, when we think and do, we feel, we think and do. We feel interested, for instance. We plan our classes and everything goes well. People are interested, understand what we mean, are not confused or lost. They learn together. We are motivated to do our job. Well, there is no need for a video. We are able to match mutual interest and knowledge, and transmission happens. We all experience at least once this situation of mutual interest. But unfortunately, that's not the everyday life of the majority of the schools or the universities around the world. We have usually a hard time with our emotions, and in learning situations as a professor or as a student. Sometimes we feel discomfort, we feel disinterest, we are not motivated, we feel shame, we feel guilt, we feel angry, and then we act, and then we think. I would like to go one step further today. I make the hypothesis that we feel, we evaluate, we do, and then too often, very late, we think. Those spontaneous evaluations, judgments, are called by Paul Ricoeur in his book Soi-même comme un autre, jugement prima facie. It's very, very fast judgments driven by emotion that defines the desirability or the smell, the disgust we have immediately in front of someone, in front of a situation. I don't like it. I don't feel good. It's a judgment. You know, I like it or I don't like it, but it's driven by emotion, or it's inherited from our parents. For instance, we often listen to a father say, I don't like chocolate, and the kid repeats, I don't like chocolate. He doesn't even know why he doesn't like chocolate, but he inherited this judgment. So this jugement prima facie are misjudgments, but sometimes intuitions that connect emotions and actions, and before we engage in reasoning. We judge, but we don't reason. We are conscious of our judgments, but they are not based on a true reason and on induction, and deduction, so and that, and demonstration. We just feel and judge. And I described this evaluation that engages us very often in wrong reasoning, because we first dislike, then we then we judge, then we find the reasoning. I don't like maths. I hate maths. The professor do a first explanation. I don't like the guy. I don't feel good with that guy. I don't understand him. It's not interesting. We don't know very well why, but we make this statement. Oh, I adore this professor. I adore him. He's the best professor in the whole world. There is nothing there. There is nobody better than him. It's also a misjudgment. It's driven by emotion. And everything he says, everything this professor says is always right. Because I adore him. And I describe this misjudgments as non-intentional attitudes, such, well, we all did that judgment once in a lifetime. I can't learn this. I'm not able to do this. It's not for me. Or the student will never succeed in my class. So I will never get people interested in philosophy. That's a judgment I know very well. We can find also the opposite. He's such a good student because he's interested on me, right? Or because he gives me a positive feedback of my class. So, and those judgments strikingly strong our memories. And sometimes they're really wrong, and that's the whole problem. Following my research based on Lacan and Freud works, we can under-evaluate or over-evaluate the others, ourselves, or the knowledge. Those non-intentional but conscious evaluations interfere and make damage to the learning process. Interest is neither positive, neither negative, is neuter. But if I start to be only self-interested, narcissistic, I only like those who like me. I'm only interested on the students that likes philosophy. Maybe I will have a hard time with critics and or be very fond in criticizing the others. And on the contrary, I can sacrifice myself because I like so much someone and he's wrong. He's obviously wrong, or there's something missing in his reasoning. But we say, okay, you're right, because you're afraid to disagree and to lose affection because you disagree. You see, those are all judgments driven by emotions. And some judgments I discovered, the shame problem, studying Brian Lynch, are driven by shame. I think of this judgment, well, my mother will be so disappointed if I don't get an A, and well, I'm not able to speak in public because my parents, they told me that my glasses were really ugly, and how could people like me if I wear glasses? And we are ashamed and we feel guilty. Well, I did something wrong, and well, guilt can be very positive because it can stop us to do worse. It's not that guilt is only negative, but it can induce us in misjudgment too, and shame can induce us in misjudgment and block us to do without knowing how to do, to learn how to do, to swim without knowing how to swim, to learn how to swim. Because to learn something new, we need to trust the one who says to us, you're able to do that. You can do it. Just try and you will see. And I am with you. You're not alone. I'll go in the pool with you. And you will have all the security. And you see there is not much water. You're taller than the water. But come on in the pool with me. Let's try to swim together. And there you need trust. And then you need to risk new scripts. And to live back to those scripts of guilt and shame, and I'm not able, and I will never succeed, and that's not interesting, and that's not for me. So just to finish my presentation of today, we don't have a stimulus and a response in the classroom. We have a stimulus, we have a feeling, we have an evaluation, and we have a response. We have a stimulus. Okay, let's learn something new today. We're going to learn how to swim. Then we have a feeling of fear. Then we have evaluation, inherited of our parents, I can do it. Then we have an answer, no, I'm not confident.